So with the yo-ho-ho, it's TaleOfTheToaster. Welcome back to this weird series where I talk about Inazuma 11 in excruciating levels of depth. In this episode, we're going to talk about episode 14. But of course, now that we're in episode 14, and indeed it is full TaleOfTheToaster mode, yes, we have passed the halfway mark now for the Ares series as a whole, and this is where things really start to amp up a gear. It's very clear what they've done with the pacing. They've done the first half is the regionals, making the team good. Now Raimon is clearly a bit too good, if I'm honest, with the stuff they're bringing out like Meteor Strike and scoring 5 goals against Polestar, the #1 ranked team in the country. It's like, okay then. But we're going to see what the national level foes are going to be. And so, immediately in the second half of the series, we open up meeting my favourite character. It's Jordan Greenway. He's rolling out with his new team, Outei Academy. And it was a bit of a shame, actually, because I'm like, I've been waiting all this time for my favourite character to appear in the series, and then I'm immediately, before I can even concentrate on it, it's like, why are they called Outei Academy? Is that a translation error, just like Savage Beast Fang was, even though Savage Beast Fang was not a translation error? I'm thinking, but it's Alias. What? Why are they called Outei now? Do they even watch this show? God. But yes, I did look this up in Japanese shortly afterwards, and indeed, it's just to reflect them being good guys in this season, and the Japanese name is slightly different from Outei. Outei as in the Japanese name. It's weird, like, Outei in Japan became Alias in English, while something new from Japan became Outei in English. Just roll with it. But anyway, that's one of the many teams. We'll talk about Outei Academy, of course, when it's actually their episode, because right now, it's not. It's actually more so a Zeus Jr High episode than anything, off the back of who we're meeting here first. We actually see Byron Love Aphrodite rolling out with his new reformed Zeus team, but we will talk about them later because they will be appearing deeper into this episode. They're followed by Alpine, another one of my absolute favourites, a true S-tier team in Inazuma history. They have a little interview with all of the top strikers of each team, or the captains. So we had a chat with Hunter Foster from Outei, then we had one with, well, we didn't actually get one with Zeus, but we could have done. And then they have a chat with Sean Frost from Alpine, but they label him as a forward in the interview, which I clocked onto straight away. I'm like, well, hang on. I mean, we know about what's changed in this timeline. I'll talk about it later in their episodes, but shouldn't Sean be a defender? But I'll work that out later. The next one to give an interview is Raimon themselves. Their captain, Maxime, goes on for the interview and can't even deliver a word. Like, this is really what this guy's come to. He's the captain of Raimon and he's done nothing. He can't even deliver an interview straight, bless him. What is he here for? We'll give him a chance, but he's had a lot already. I'm waiting for this guy to do anything. But then it's followed up by Polestar, of course, we're long familiar with by now. Elliot doesn't even bother with the interview. But who's after that? Yes, Polestar are introduced as the favourite for the football frontier, but they're followed by Lunar Prime Academy, which is kind of a new name, but it has two very familiar faces on it. We've got Heath Moore and Dusk Grayling, who've been watching all the matches so far from within the crowds. This is the first we get to learn about them as actual players, though. Dusk being a goalkeeper, and Heath, in this interview with the team, he's addressed as a forward, which doesn't seem quite right to me. I don't know if that's an error or if it's just his specific role for those guys, but like, not to go too far into the future, but I've never thought of him as a forward. But nevertheless, he kind of shills out for the scales of Ares in this big ramble about how we're gonna find the perfect human and change the future and Lunar Prime Academy, blah blah blah. Says what he's got to say. There's got to be a villain's narrative going on in this season somewhere. It can't all be happy and daisies. The last team we see is some green guys called Everytown Junior High, who've got a mysterious goalkeeper. I wonder who that could be. Ugh. But yes, above all, it's good to be getting some exposition finally on Heath Moore, Nosaka Yuuma, because
as we've seen with the title cards of Ares and all the promotional artwork, there's always been three kind of main guys. There's been Sunny, there's been Elliot, and there's been Heath. But we're halfway through the series now, and all Heath's really done is just watch matches from within the stands. Now's the time where we actually get to learn a little bit more about him. Except the way they start it off is just... he's taking a shower immediately after the intro song as well. It's like, take it to the top, screaming but music not very well, and then it just cuts to Heath in the shower, and it's like, oh. Watching Inazuma 11 by myself, yay, happy football fun. Watching Inazuma with your parents in the room, just Heath in the shower. You can never predict these kind of things, but it goes on anyway to a bit of a darkly lit room where he studies, I guess. This is Lunar Prime Academy itself, and they're all, the whole team's there, they're just shrouded in darkness, and then some guy called Lucian has apparently tried to do a runner because he wants to have a normal life reading comics. One of those definitely, you could have done a little bit more on the translation of that one, guys. I want to have a normal life reading manga might have made a bit more sense in Japan, but I want to have a normal life reading comics was a bit of a flat note in the dub. But hey ho, the main thing is this guy Lucian, like all the other Lunar Prime Academy players, seems to be kind of trapped there against his will as they try to find some recipe for a perfect superhuman or whatever. There's a lot of exposition on it in the episode, but I won't expand on it too far here. But basically this guy Lucian, he's got a crush on a girl and he wants to go on a date, so he's like, but I shouldn't allow that. I'm kind of the captain of this somewhat villainous looking team. I need to keep him in the shadow. And then he just runs off because he has a little flashback to Regina, who he's met one episode prior and exchanged about 3 sentences with. And he's like, could a girl really be a reason to escape these schools where we're trapped against our will to find perfect human? Yes, probably, Heath. I think that's a reasonable excuse. But anyway, that guy just emergency exits out of there. And we get more on Heath and Dusk. But what about after that? Well, Heath just casually goes over to Raimon Jr High, pops around for a look around the school, as though he wouldn't possibly be detected. Like, people already know this guy just from his trading cards. Of course he was going to get spotted. But he immediately sees Regina, so it's like, they really did just introduce this character for the benefit of another, didn't they? Is Regina going to have a Heath-free moment? Who knows, but that's a role right now. For the time being, Heath is kind of spying on Raimon, you could say, and then Adriano just runs up to him and is like, hey, you can't spy on us, what are you doing here? You think we wouldn't recognize? Just to create some kind of silly fight, but then it again just serves to give Maxime seemingly his only role in the entire series. He's the captain, so if there's a fight going on, he's got to break it up, right? So he kind of stands between Heath and Adriano, and it's like, whoa, how captainly. We'll get to say something good about him at some point, I promise. But the main takeaway from this scene is actually that Regina finally does talk to Heath, and although I don't really remember what they were talking about exactly, one thing that is dropped in there is that Lunar Prime Academy is going to face Polestar Academy in the first round of the Football Frontier Nationals. What? At least build it up a little bit more than that. Don't drop it in round 1. That's rubbish. Because even Polestar is introduced in the beginning of the episode as the favourite for the Football Frontier International, not quite, Football Frontier, and then Lunar Prime are introduced as the other favourites who've been on a hot winning streak despite being a new school. And it's like, well, surely they could have avoided drawing them together in the first round if they are both of the favourites. Come on. And unfortunately, it's not the only example of a really doff draw like that in this episode. Do you remember how Elliot Ember's entire motive was supposed to be about revenge and taking down the scales of Ares? Yeah, I guess halfway through the episode it's about time we did remember that fact, because yeah, if they're going to be playing against each other in round 1, then that means Elliot's got his chance to actually take down the Scales of Ares. Will he do it in episode 14? Well, I won't hedge all my bets, but right now he's certainly practicing hard. And it's just a nice scene, actually, because we get to see normal life at Polestar, where they don't hate each other. We've got Jude, we've got Acaris, we've got Elliot, and all the others, and they're just being friends. And it's like, man, this is good. I want more of this, especially more Acaris lines. But we get a good few. He's there to keep Elliot on the straight and narrow, so that's nice. And then we even cut to another school, which is gonna be Raimon's opponent in the first round. And that's Zeus Jr High. I know I kind of set that up at the beginning of the episode, but good grief! We've seen how many teams were like standing in the opening ceremony. There's about 16 teams in this whole thing, maybe more. And they're going to have Polestar versus Lunar Prime and Raimon versus Zeus, a rematch of the grand final from last year's Football Frontier. Obviously, it's a different Raimon team, but Raimon are also introduced in the opening ceremony as the reigning champions. So it's like, how do you end up with a rematch of the final in the first round? That's absolute absurdity, and I feel terrible for Zeus because, again, first half of the season, it was unpredictable in the sense that, you know, Raimon could afford to lose matches in the round robin stage, and there were also matches between other schools like Polestar versus Kirkwood. But now that we're in the knockout stages of the Football Frontier regionals, not regionals, nationals, in a straight knockout format, I believe it's clarified. Well, Raimon can't lose now, can they? Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, this is all my original thoughts while I was watching the season, not necessarily speaking from hindsight, but the moment I found out it's already time for Zeus at the midpoint of the season, oh, poor Aphrodite. They're also nice and reformed as well, but I guess that's it for them. It's rematch time. Above all, though, I guess if anything's weird about this scene, it's just seeing Zeus Jr High as an actual school, because, like, were they ever meant to be? I think it's just a bunch of kids that Ray Dark collected a year ago so that he had a team to compete with once Royal Academy had lost. I don't think Zeus is meant to be like an actual school only for people who happen to resemble Greek gods. Like most of the schools you can kind of believe, but this one, I want to go and enroll at Zeus Jr High. I'm just going to get on a plane every day, study up in the clouds and in the sky. I mean, it's not shown to be in the sky in this scene, but it's still dark and dim and a very Colosseum-like area with two new coaches, one who sounds exactly like Makoto Naegi from Danganronpa, because it is Bryce Papenbrook, and then another is this older lady who appeared in Outer Code alongside Aphrodite. I won't go into too much detail on that in case you've not seen it, but put it this way, if you've seen that 6-minute episode, it's quite confusing that she's still here. But yeah, that's the thing. Above all, they will be playing later in this episode. Not very well. They won't actually play the match, but Raimon and Zeus will at least set up to play at the end of the episode, while it's already time, I'm afraid, for Polestar versus Lunar Prime. So again, there's all this contentious stuff with the Lunar Prime staff. He's noticed that Heath Moore has let this Lucian guy run off, and he's like, can I trust this guy as a captain? We have strict disciplinary measures here at the Scales of Ares and Lunar Prime Academy. All of that stuff. It's like, yeah, we get it. These guys have not got it the easiest. It's a necessary setup for the series. Not so much fun to talk about. But they will be going on against Polestar Academy, and oh dear, it doesn't look like Polestar are really in the best position to stay in this tournament anymore. We do see some fantastic skills from both Heath and Dusk the goalkeeper, actually. Something I've not really drawn enough attention to throughout the Ares reviews is that you really do see some great animation on some of the actual football plays. They've been very careful to integrate genuine real-world skills. In fact, the official Inazuma 11 series channel has like a comparison video that they did with a real footballer once, and then shows how the clips were integrated into the series. The ones that we're seeing from Heath are a lot less doable, but they're nevertheless so cool to see. Really sets him up as a player to beat for the first time. He's just been an analytics guy before, but now, oh, he's a proper player, all right. And Dusk Grayling stops a penguin volley with his bare hands. It's like, yeah, this I think we found the real favourite here. It can't just be Polestar in the final again, right? And yeah, it's going pretty poorly for them. Like, Elliot's extremely upset because he had one narrative. He wanted to get revenge on the scales of Ares. He didn't care about making friends with Sonny or any of that, but he seems to have done it by accident. But he just wanted to beat this one guy, and he's not succeeding, is he? It's not going well. But what I do like is that they actually kept it somewhat realistic for this episode. I'm not sure how it will go in the next one, because the match doesn't actually end in this episode. It's going to cut away in a moment, but although Lunar Prime are dominating Polestar at the moment, we're actually only 3-0 in the lead, which is a significant lead. It would be enough to plant despair in any opposing football team. But Inazuma, it has this nasty habit of whenever a match is meant to be a walkover to dispirit someone, it's always like 10-0 or 15-0 or 36-0 in the case of Team Ogre versus Zeus. It's like, this is still dispiriting them because Lunar Prime's doing so much better, but at the moment it's still only 3-0. We'll wait and see in the next episode, because I genuinely can't remember how that match is going to end, but I hope it kind of sticks to that kind of number. Again, defying traditions, but in a good way. But we go over to Raimon versus Zeus, and I still can't believe that it's happening now, but let's embrace it. No more complaints. We're just going to judge the match for what it is and try to enjoy it. And Zeus, they have this most wonderful sponsor. Like, all of the sponsors in this season are based on real companies, but they're always Japanese ones that we wouldn't know over here, or in some cases it's literally just Kiddo, a character. Jude Sharp is the sponsor of Royal Academy. But no, this one sees Zeus sponsored by God Bull, a very obvious reference to Red Bull, not just in name, but also they have this little animation of two of the new characters, like Percy Hurst alongside Aphrodite. They're doing this really Red Bull style hand-drawn animation of running towards Aphrodite posing as a god and then offering them drinks. And it's like, this is 3-in-1. It's a recognisable company, it's a genuine homage with the ad that we all get, and it's a company that's regularly known for sponsoring people in the world of sports and esports. I go to a lot of Smash Brothers gaming tournaments, and that's taken me to places like EVO and Super Smash Con in my lucky lifetime. Red Bull's everywhere. They love to sponsor anything esports, and I'm sure they're just like that with the real world of sports as well. So it's genuinely a good choice. I wouldn't have picked it for Zeus, but having some kind of Red Bull reference, I think that really grants the season in the world of reality, and I like that a lot. Let's take a look at the formation for the actual new Zeus team. I'll keep that up in the top wherever. My footage gets flipped, so I had to think of which direction it was going to be, and I just bailed. But the point is, Zeus is obviously now 1 year on from where it was before, so clearly it must be some kind of real school, because some of them have graduated, and now there's some new first years as well. Like, Percy Hurst is one of the new characters that I can remember the names of, but there are a couple. There's also a brand new goalkeeper called Ross Siddon, and I think it's really worth pointing that one out, because when I was watching this match I was very confused. Because the goalkeeper, Ross Siddon, he looks exactly like Poseidon from Season 1's Zeus team, the only difference being that his skin tone is black instead of white, and his hair is a slightly different colour as well. So, like, it is a different design, and it is a different character, but without reading the names, I didn't think it was a new character at first. I thought they'd kind of done a bit of a reverse Waylon Smithers and just redesigned the character, because I guess they kind of did that with Axel Blaze as well. He used to just be the whitest guy on the planet, but then they gave him a doctor from... No, I'm not going to take a guess, but... and then gradually, as he became Alex Zabel in Go, they kind of updated Axel's appearance to reflect that a little better. So I don't know what inspired them with Ross. They're the same surname, so they have to be related. But it's cool. Like, clearly Poseidon, the original guy, was a third year, so he's graduated, and now his younger brother has come along, looking almost exactly the same, but just with slight tweaks. The only actual thing that strikes me as weird about the formation of Zeus, again, the only new character I seem to remember the name of off the top of my head, but Percy Hurst is there in the formation, and he's labelled as a forward. In fact, he's one of only 2 players on the team that's labelled as a forward, but he's playing in midfield. Like up top, they've got a midfielder in front of the forward Percy Hurst. It's like, is it meant to be like that? I don't know if they'll change around in the match or whatever, but anyway, that's pretty much all we've got to say about Zeus in this episode, because they don't actually start the match. We just get them on the pitch, and then we're done. With Zeus, anyway. It does go back to Polestar versus Lunar Prime for a little bit, but that was just to show that finally Polestar found a little bit of an edge. Jude found an opening so that they could take the ball off Heath with a sliding tackle, and so Heath's response is to give us a flashback that says he's got 3 months to live. And it's, mate, you only lost the ball. But I guess they had to drop that information in there somewhere. Obviously, it was hinted when he collapsed in the previous episode and dropped his pills. But yeah, I don't mean to joke about it too much, because it is a serious plot point. It just, yeah, they've clearly made sure it goes at the very, very end of the episode as your finishing note. But yes, they didn't go into details, but Heath Moore, he's on borrowed time, and he's bigged up as a big tactician, but he doesn't have time to show that off and play football freely, because he's got to change the world before he clocks it. So, and then that is where the episode ends. It ends on a bit of a sour note, but an important one for building the rest of the narrative. There will obviously be a lot more emphasis on this in the season going forward, so I will leave it there for now. I've kind of jokingly introduced it. We might talk about it a bit more seriously in future episodes. But for now, this is a great halfway mark. We've established pretty much all of the major teams in the football frontier, but still saving room for any potential surprises that might come up. Or at least that's what I'm hoping at the time. And we've got 2 very exciting matches, even if they're happening way too early. Raimon versus Zeus, Polestar versus Lunar Prime, with all of the other ones waiting in the distance that I can't wait to see. And yeah, we finally get to know more about Heath, and it gives us more to look forward to in the future. So I've been TaleOfTheToaster, hope you enjoyed, and see you in the next 11 episodes of the series. Bye for now.